Welcome to What's Going On, the weekly podcast and videocast of First United Methodist Church in Yankton, South Dakota. Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of What's Going On. I'm Pastor Katie here at First United Methodist in Yankton, South Dakota, and I'm glad you could join me for this episode. This episode, we get to have Cindy Erlandson back with us from Habitat for Humanity. She's the director of Habitat for Yankton and Clay counties. And Cindy, thanks so much for coming back. That's what I want to say.
Thanks for having me again.
There we go.
Appreciate it.
So if you remember, we had Cindy on just a couple months ago when she was less than a week into the job.
Brand new.
Yeah,
that's right. Yep.
And so I'm glad to have you back to be talking a little bit about what's going on with Habitat and the ways in which we as a church can be involved in that. And so my first question is just, how's it going the first couple months into the job? How you feeling?
Well, it's been overwhelming. It's been exciting. It's getting more exciting the more I get past the learning stages of, how to do the books and the paperwork and all that less exciting stuff. But yeah, no, it's we have successfully, I guess, transitioned from there's two of our key people that have moved on or planned moved on before I started, and so now I'm kind of in the office alone, and I have a great new restore manager too, and we're looking kind of to expand some of our, at least one other position as a core position. Okay. So yeah, we're setting things in motion and great things ahead.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. So when we think about Habitat, we tend to think about the home builds. That's kind of the thing that Habitat is known for. You just finished a home build in Vermilion, right?
Vermilion, right. Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of the main thing that we tend to think about. Mm-hmm. But Habitat's actually been expanding in what the kind of things you guys have been involved in. Mm-hmm. And so do you want to share a little bit more about some of the other programs that Habitat does?
Yeah, absolutely. And I did want to say, too, before I get too far into it, that having this relationship with you and the church here and learning about that partnership that it's been from the beginning of the Yankton Habitat has been so wonderful for me, and that really helped me transition into the community. There's so many folks from the church that have come in and identified who they are, volunteered for different things, and just appreciate that community support so much. But yes, I guess that was one of the things I talked about the first time too, is I came from Habitat in Sioux Falls, and we had been doing some other programs there that Habitat International has sanctioned and is hoping to grow. And so in Yankton and Clay counties, we had done it just a little bit, I think, and that's something that I really wanted to expand on when I came here, to touch more lives and to, it doesn't have to be a huge project to touch more lives. And so that is what I felt like we could do, while we're building a house. We can, if we're building a house in Yankton this year, which hopefully we will, then we can be more in Vermilion and surrounding areas at the same time, doing smaller projects, aging in place projects, helping the older folks stay in their homes longer, and preventing trip hazards, weatherization projects, just those small things, modifications that can help those folks live healthier, better lives in the homes that they love and the communities that they love.
Right. Mm-hmm. Well, I was just visiting with a couple not that long ago that they were lamenting kind of the lack of people who do those sort of smaller jobs, the kind of handyman sort of jobs where, so much now it's really difficult to get someone just to do a really small project, because if it's not a big project, they kind of don't want to quote unquote waste their time with it. And so I think there has been a growing need for this kind of work. And so it's great that Habitat is trying to step into that gap a little bit of, at least with some of these things, smaller projects that make a big difference in someone's life.
Right, exactly. And we're staying with our core mission, which is a decent, safe home for people. And it's still a home ownership program, and so we don't We aren't able to work on, the rental properties and things like that, but we definitely, if you meet the income guidelines, and under our income guidelines, and for these projects, what we would like to do, and where we need help with our funding sources, is we try to they only have to pay for the material costs, and then we try to get that on a sliding scale ability to pay. And so to make sure that we can do that, it's a big impact for our gifts that we get, and our donations. We can make a big difference in someone's life for a relatively small amount of money that maybe they wouldn't be able to afford. And also helps Habitat grow. We can do more if we don't have to expend our as much money out of our own mortgage payments and things like that. If we can get those donations in, we can just do a lot more. And there's so many requests for this. And so we would love to help as many people as we can.
Right, and so just to be clear, so someone who qualifies, again, they have to own their home, they have to be within a certain income bracket, but they're still going to be paying for it to some level.
Right.
Like, this isn't just a handout, this isn't just we're going to come in and do it for you. It is you're going to get this at cost, or maybe even less, of the materials that are used.
Exactly.
And so again, there's still that buy-in, there's still that ownership piece to it. And so I just want to be clear about that, because sometimes I think
Right.
I can make a difference for people.
Right, it is, and that's kind of one of the things I always try to say about Habitat, is there really isn't a loophole that people can go through for the Habitat program. I'm not saying that we would never give somebody that needs grab bars, something simple like that we wouldn't give it to them for free, because we would. If it's going to make them safer and they don't have the funds for it truly, we would just ask them maybe to, write a thank you card or something like that, to have some engagement in the process, or, in some way or other. But other than that, yes, the bigger projects, we need to have, some of that buy-in to it. And but we do want to do it on a sliding scale. Right,
and I think that's still a huge amount of grace and a huge amount, a burden lifted, I think, for the people that are getting helped. And so, and again, just that someone can come and do it.
Right. Yeah, so we do have to pay our person to do it. So that's another way that your gifts can help us, grow, because that's having that skilled person in place is not inexpensive for us.
So you've talked about like maybe installing grab bars. What are some other types of things that kind of fall under that category, or things that
well, what we kind of are looking for in the Aging in Place program is that somebody maybe has a home where their bathroom isn't set up for aging. Maybe they need a zero entry shower or something, or wider doorways, or things like that. Would be a little bit larger project, but it would be something that we would really love to help folks with. Ramps, things like that for those older folks. But there's also things that aren't maybe necessarily age related. It could be we do home repairs. We can do things like painting a home. If you need, it's a great volunteer opportunity to do a home, a painting of a home. But we do, for our volunteers and stuff, it has to be a certain, usually like a 1-story or something home. But we can also try to look into other options, maybe help with, setting up a low interest loan, either through Habitat or through maybe a USDA type of thing. And we can kind of work with folks on that if there's a larger project, or maybe they do have to get a contractor. Like I'm working with a woman who has a roof that is needs to be replaced terribly badly, and so I'm trying to work with her and help her get loan or grant, and then have her try to get her with contractors, because we have wonderful connections
Right.
with some contractors too. But like I said, they are busy, so we know that people out on their own, it's, especially maybe an elderly person, may not know what to do next, and
Right.
and
Well-
even friends and family may not know
Right.
what to do next. And often we get contact from friends and family, so we'll work and try to advocate on their behalf too, even if we can't actually do the work ourselves. So.
And one of the things that we were talking about is that you've been getting in referrals from other agencies and places in Yankton to kind of help get connected with the people that could benefit from Habitat.
Right. Yeah, we are actively working with long-term services and supports, and I don't know if everybody knows what that means, but I actually just talked to a gal today about a client she has. What they do is they go into older people or lower income people's homes, and they try to evaluate their needs, maybe a health need. Usually that what they're looking for is health related needs, but they're going into their homes. They're a trusted resource to these folks, and so if they identify a need that maybe we could help with, then they will refer them to us. Those grab bar needs and those things that are maybe something that is preventing them from living safely, or a rotting deck, or a railing that's loose, or, it could be anything. And so since they are going into their homes, and we know that older people are rightly so not super trusting of somebody knocking on their door or calling them or
Right.
saying somebody that knows. So we really think that, we know that those referrals are so important to get someone to know that we are some person that they can trust, and an organization they can trust, and then we can see how we can help them from there. So
Well, I think that's just such an important piece of it, is we know that there are needs out in the community, but working with different agencies and organizations now, one of the things we often talk about is how do we get connected? How do we, because especially if we have something that's we can't seem to accomplish on ourselves, it can be very difficult for people to admit it or ask for help, or to seek that out.
Right.
And so having connections with places that are already in those homes, already working with those people, and being able to say, for them to say, I've got somewhere that could be helpful. I just think that's been a huge thing, and I'm really glad to hear that Habitat's been able to work in that way.
And that's part of it, being in a community, is we're not trying to work against each other or vie for well, that's my we're trying
Right.
to work together for the greater good,
Yeah.
and that is just expanding our impact that way, instead of everybody having to go into their home. If this wonderful person that's already going in there trying to help can identify some other things
Yeah.
and refer to other
Yeah.
agencies, then it's just a wonderful thing.
I mean, we're all in this together,
We
right?
are,
Yeah.
right, absolutely.
So I want to talk a little bit more. We had talked briefly before about kind of the vision that Habitat has for where they'd like to go moving forward, and especially the vision to expand the impact. Habitat has a lot of resources and a lot of things that they can do, but you really came in with the vision of how do we maximize our impact on the Yankton community. And so I'd love for you to share a little bit more of kind of where's the vision for Habitat for Humanity here, and then we can talk about ways that we can plug into that.
Great, yeah. Well, as I talked a lot about is these smaller programs, and that is something that we're going to continue to work on. But what we'd also, going back to our home ownership, which is so important too.
Yeah,
it's
essential,
really.
really.
It really, the studies show that it just really can impact lives for generations. If you have a child that grows up in a that their parents own, or parent owns a home, that parent's building equity, so that child is more likely to be able to have higher education opportunities. They're more likely to see themselves as homeowners. They're more likely to be in a healthy condition, because we do have low requirements, so the bottom income limits, but we also have the higher income limits. And so you fit between. So you have to be able to pay that affordable mortgage. So you have to be working hard. But also it's evaluated as need. So it could be maybe they're living in an overcrowded situation. Maybe they might be living in a place that is something is not good with it or whatever. So if we're taking children, families, people out of that situation, they are more likely to be successful down the road, and and just can carry that on from generation to generation. It's really a wonderful thing.
Yes.
And so we will continue with that work, and we hope to build on that. And I know that Yankton is working on some projects, and there is right now South Dakota has this big infrastructure grant, and so communities are applying for this to build the infrastructure for they call it workforce housing, neighborhoods and things like that to set up. And so we can partner with the cities, and hopefully we could benefit from that by having some lower priced lots that we can purchase and build on them, and that will be able to help us increase capacity. And then we also are looking at having, instead of right now we have our mortgages come back in monthly payments for 30 years to us, we're looking at the possibility of going through a lender that can provide that same affordable mortgage and payments, but then we would get that money back immediately so we can reinvest and start more projects, because you need the capital to begin with.
Right.
And that's the hard part, is like, okay, we have to fundraise, and we always want to engage our partners, and we still need to engage our partners and get that money to come in. But if we are able to get the money back quicker from the sale of the home, which is what we are, that's how we are, most of our programs are funded, is from the sale of the previous homes back to us, and those mortgages that are coming in. If we can get that money in a lump sum earlier, then we can start doing more and more and more. So, and we know it's definitely needed.
It is. I just want to share a quick story in that I'd gone to one of our local gas stations and was visiting with the cashier, and I don't know how in the world we got on the topic, because again, I was like buying, I don't even remember, and she said like her dream, it was to have a house, that right now her and her husband and 3 children are living in a 2-bedroom apartment. And she said in Yankton, that's all there is, and what is being built are more 2-bedroom apartments. And she goes, we're already outsized in suburban, but she goes, what's being built she can't afford, so maybe I should find her name and give her to
I absolutely should carry my card around for those conversations.
But it was just a really fascinating thing to hear for her, that would the amount of stress that she feels in the living situation, and feeling like there just isn't options,
and now more than ever, and I know that's overused phrase, but it's so true, that you don't have to be super low income to not be able to afford a decent, affordable home.
Right.
I mean, if you look at folks who are trying to apply for their first time home buyer's loan, it has to meet certain specifications for it to pass. A veteran's loan, it has to meet certain specifications for it to pass. So you might qualify for a loan, but is your loan that you qualify for enough to get a home that will pass the inspection to actually to be able to purchase that home? Because the homes that are available now at the lower prices probably are more than likely anymore.
Well, I believe
it gets higher and higher. To get it to be able to pass those standards.
My husband, before he married me, the itinerant pastor, had a house in Sioux Falls, and it was a 2-bedroom house, very very small, and kind of not the best neighborhood of Sioux Falls, but not a terrible one. And I think it valued, when he bought it, it was like $83,000 or something. And we sold that house, let's say I've been married 7 years, so like 6-7 years ago, for maybe slightly higher than that, maybe. And recently, I think this last year, he just for fun looked up what it's valued at now, and it's valued at 130. Like, so just in the last 5 to 6 years, that jumped up. And I've seen the house. It's nothing's happened to it.
Right.
$50,000 for this very small, that didn't even have a shower.
No, really.
When we were dating, he would tell me things like, I'm just going to take a bath real quick and then I'll be there. And I was like, wow, that's such a weird thing to say. Until I learned later that he was actually taking a bath because his house didn't have a shower. I made him put one in before he sold it.
Yeah, you would think that'd be a requirement for most folks. Yeah, funny.
But so to me, I mean, I just look at that and think, that house, I mean, it's not a bad house, but my family wouldn't fit in that now.
No, right, right. And I think back to my first time homebuyer experience many years ago, and they are looking for, they look for what can cause you problems that you're going to have to spend more money on.
Right.
And at, a range even under almost up to 200,000 now, the houses that you can find in that range are limited, and especially limited if they're going to pass for those.
Right.
So I actually had a veteran call me and say that they had been approved for a loan and they have to wait until something comes on the market because they couldn't. And those houses under that price point go so fast.
Right. Well, anything.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I mean, again, I think back to a conversation I had with someone who moved to Yankton recently in the last few years. And they had 6 houses total to choose from.
Yeah.
There just wasn't anything.
Right.
And so, again, going back to Habitat's really filling a need here in Yankton. And so one of the goals right now, what is the average? How many, we helped with a house in Yankton in the summer of 2021. I remember I was pregnant with Abigail at that time. And then you just completed a house in Vermilion.
Right. Yep.
So averaging about a house a year.
Yeah, and I think at one point they had done more than that, and we've had the transition. And the last year was really a transition of between the last really executive director leaving, and then before I was hired, there was a time there where they didn't really have anybody with an experience to go forward. And so it's really not that, I think that was kind of the slowdown period. And so because of the slowdown period, now we need to get revved up. And so it's taking us a little bit to get revved up and get going again. But we are ready now, and there's really a lot of exciting talk. But I just want to say quickly, too, that we aren't, I think the new builds are great, but also the city, if there's those lots in the middle, or those those opportunities that we aren't just expanding, but we are kind of improving our existing neighborhoods too. If we have the opportunity for that, for rehabs and things like that, we'll be looking at that as well. And so that's important to me as well, that that we're not just helping with the spread, but we're also helping with the opportunities to revitalize the neighborhoods. Yeah. So that's part of the good stuff too.
So is the next build looking to be in Yankton?
That's what we're really trying to do.
Okay.
We have to, again, at this point, we're looking towards building that capacity. So we have to look at where is our best option for our next home, and then go from there. But we really are wanting to engage in Yankton again. We think that's very important, and so if we were to have a lot in Vermilion and Yankton, we could still buy both lots, but we would choose Yankton first to build on if that were to be the case. And it looks like there's some opportunities that we really hope to be able to capitalize on. So that would be the main thing. We probably would stick with just Vermillion and Yankton for building, as far as building, new homes, just because of the, it would be investing in smaller towns would be fine if we knew that there was somebody that already lived there that would qualify for the program and that it would make sense for them. But there's like inexpensive lots in Irene, for example.
Right.
But to have a lot in Irene, we wouldn't want anybody to have to decide that, well, it's worth a commute. We don't want to put that burden on anybody. Right. And so, one other thing too. Sorry, I have a lot. That's
why she's
here. That's right. We our committee recently just voted and our board approved an increase in our income limits.
Okay.
And that is because of kind of one of the things that we talked about, it's more and more prevalent that, it's not just those under 60% of the area median income was what our limit was before. 80% is what we're going for now.
Okay.
So it's still under what the area median income is,
right.
And it's different for Clay and Yankton counties. And I'm putting my brochure together now to reflect those changes. But that will give more people an opportunity to, apply.
Especially if they were kind of right at maybe the cutoff.
Right, and nobody likes that cutoff business. That that hurts my. I used to work with HUD, and that's hard. Yeah. That's hard to say no that you
right.
can't. So absolutely, and Habitat for Humanity International allows us to do up to 80%, and they're talking about increasing it even higher based on and they're all over the United States. But so I think what people need to know is that this is people, there are folks that work 2 or 3 jobs,
right.
To make ends meet that fall under this.
Yes.
There are teachers, there are, healthcare workers, there are people that are working hard that would like to have this assistance, that deserve this, assistance, and they will work hard for it.
Right.
But, and we're also looking at the sweat equity hours because of that, as well as maybe, adjusting it more for family circumstances.
Okay.
Since people sometimes are working 2 jobs, have kids, that maybe we aren't going to have them also come in every Saturday to try to, fulfill their needs, and we don't have Sunday work, and,
right.
After, it's just can be an extra burden
right.
that we don't want them to carry. We want them to work. We want them to engage with the volunteers. We want them to be a part of the build, but we don't have to make it. We need to make it fit the
right.
family
right.
situation.
Yeah.
So some of the things we're doing.
I love that. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
So part of the reason that we invited Cindy now is because on our 5th Sunday in July, which I believe is July 30th, we are taking an offering for Habitat for Humanity. This is our 5th Sunday bucket offering, our mission offering, and this time this is where we've chosen that it will go. And so you have an opportunity right now to help build that capital that she was talking about in order to increase the capacity for Habitat to meet these needs that we've been sharing about. And it's very clear that they're there, and very clear that there's a lot of opportunity. But again, that comes back to us to help support that mission if we believe in it, to give toward it. And the other really exciting piece of this is we have a donor who is willing to match the first $500 that are given. So dollar for dollar. So for the first $500, that's going to turn into $1,000. And I would love for our church to at least get there, if not more, because again, imagine what that can do, especially as we were talking about those kind of smaller projects that could fund quite a few, or it can be the difference for how quickly we can get going on another build here in Yankton. And it is my hope that when we have another build in Yankton, that our church will be there to show up and swing some hammers. And
sure, that's the good part, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, and I had so much fun the last time we did that, and I think that's one of the best opportunities that we have. Again, if part of our mission is to serve our community, this is a great way to do it. And again, like she said, kind of right off the top, we have a long history with Habitat. This is a mission and ministry that this church church has been involved in since day one. And so let's continue that legacy. And so I hope that as you come for worship on July 30th, or if you're going to be gone that week like I am, you can I have a mandatory retreat that I have to head out to Rapid City that day. But I am going to have my check before I go, because I want to get in on that matching dollar for dollar, and I hope that you do as well. If you can't be there, you can go online and give. We'll have a designation there for Habitat, or you can stop by the office and drop off your offering as well. But we just want to thank you so much for kind of stepping into this role and really taking Habitat into the next chapter of what it's going to look like. And I think God just really did a great thing in bringing you here, and so we're so grateful.
Thank you so very much. Well, I definitely appreciate, again, the church's partnership. Anybody that would like to come down and have a chat or talk about other opportunities, we have lots of volunteer opportunities, community committee opportunities, board opportunities, things like that we'd love to invite you to learn more about if you'd like. And of course, you can support our Restore too.
I was just going to say, or you could shop at the Restore. Yeah.
And meet our Restore manager if you haven't already. Charlie she's been just fantastic, and awesome. The store looks great. If you haven't been down there for a while, come check us out. It's good stuff.
All right. Well, I hope that you've enjoyed this episode of What's Going On, and I hope to see you in worship this week. And then again, as I mentioned before, I will be out of the office from July 30th through August 6th, I believe, for a mandatory clergy retreat that I have no choice. I have to go and retreat. That is what I've been told. And so I will be out. Carl Watkins, our retired clergy, is going to be sharing the message and leading worship those 2 weeks. That doesn't mean you get to skip. Please come, please support, and we'll see you again real soon. And if you haven't yet, sign those kids up for VBS, because if we have more kids signed up for VBS than the UCC church, we get to make a Sunday on their pastor's head. If they sign up more kids than we do, I get the Sunday on my head, and this hair does not want Sunday in it. So get your kids signed up. All right, until next time, God bless. Thank you for listening to this episode of What's Going On. We'd love to have you join us for worship here at the church on Sundays at 10 a.m. You can also find us online via our website at firstumcyankton.org or search for us on YouTube.